Topic, let me explain. So at the public high school where I work in New Jersey, I am part of a committee called the Intervention and Referral Services Committee. And one of the things that we handle in our committee is something known as 504 accommodations. So many of you know what 504 plans are, you've heard of them. If you haven't, I'll explain quickly. So 504 is actually a section that comes from the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. It's an anti-discrimination law that protects students that may have disabilities and allows them accommodations if necessary, if they're unable to do what the other kids are capable of doing, and their disability is preventing them from that. So we put together something called 504 plans, which are accommodation plans. So if the student has a specific disability and they may be entitled to extra time on tests and quizzes, preferential seating, different sorts of accommodations that we put in place. So of all the years that I've been working as a school counselor, the typical types of referrals that we would receive were for kids that had specific physical disabilities, other things like Crohn's disease, diabetes, sometimes specific learning disabilities if they didn't qualify for IEPs. And around 2009, 2008, probably 2008, I remember being in one of our meetings. We had a parent meeting. Parent had contacted our committee requesting a 504 plan. So the protocol is the parent has to come in and meet with us. They have to explain what the medical diagnosis is, how it's affecting their child, how it's impacting them educationally and so forth. And this particular parent, this is the first time I saw this, remember this is a high school, so 14 through 18-year-olds, had come in because her 14-year-old son had been recently diagnosed with attention deficit disorder. Okay, so I remember when I first heard that, I was very surprised because the school district in our area is a very, very good school district. And the first thing I thought was, how did this kid fall through the system? Okay? Because if you know anything about attention deficit disorder, the average age of diagnosis is age 8. And if a child has attention deficit disorder, you can't not notice it by age 5. So it's a neurological condition that you're born with. All right? It's not something that you get later on in life. And we had this 14-year-old in front of us. We're talking to the parents. And one of the things we do is we gather information from all the teachers. And all of the symptoms were there that we were getting from the teachers. The inattentiveness, the lack of focus, the disorganization, all of those things. So the kid had the classic symptoms of attention deficit disorder. So anyway, that happened. The following week, we had another meeting with a parent requesting accommodations. Same exact thing. Another student that had been recently diagnosed with attention deficit disorder. That was September of 2008. From that point on until the end of that school year, almost every single referral we had for 504 accommodations was for teenagers recently diagnosed with attention deficit disorder. So at that point, it was at that point where I kind of felt like I was alone. Like I was like the only person questioning this. Like, doesn't anybody else see that there's something going on here? But I don't know what it is that's going on here. So I consulted with colleagues in neighboring school districts, and all of them were seeing the exact same thing. Exactly what I had in my high school, and there's a lot of high schools in New Jersey. It's like every town has its own high school, pretty much. And so at that point, I started really researching anything I could find on attention deficit disorder, and I came across the compelling research of a renowned physician by the name of Gary Small. And Gary Small is a physician out of UCLA, and he's world-renowned. And he had conducted, back in 2006, research on the impact of electronic devices on the brain. And his research was called Your Brain on Google, okay? And it was a real catchy term, and it got major, major media attention. He had different brain scans of people while they were using screens and so forth, and showing different areas of the brain illuminating and all that. And the media really took that as being something positive. They looked at it as, wow, all of these screens and stuff are actually making people smarter. But he wasn't seeing it that way. And what really caught my attention was one of the researchers on his team that coined a term that he called acquired ADHD. Okay, it's not an official term, but acquired ADHD. And what he meant by that term was that they estimated, the research team, that approximately 70% of kids that are diagnosed later with attention deficit disorder don't actually have attention deficit disorder. What they have is a brain that has rewired itself and changed from spending so much time in a highly stimulating world. So around that same time, as I'm doing all my research, I came across an organization called the Kaiser Family Foundation. Back in 2004, they conducted their first national survey on media use among kids between the ages of 8 and 18, okay? And when the research came out in 2005, they found that the average child in 2005, from the 2004 research, in that age category was spending 6.5 hours a day using screen media, okay? Digital media. So their goal was to conduct this research every 4 years. 2008 rolls around, and they were almost not going to conduct it again. They were hesitant to conduct it again because they felt they had actually reached a ceiling on the amount of time that there actually is in a day for that number to go up from 6.5 hours at all. They did it again anyway in 2008 when the results came out in 2009. This is right when I'm in the middle of starting doing all this. The number, they were shocked because that number rose from 6.5 hours a day to 7 hours, 38 minutes a day in 2008. Anybody want to take a guess what changed between 2004 and 2008? Not the iPhone. Nope. Two things. YouTube and Facebook were born. Okay?